What I would love to tell you in the next 5 minutes is how you can get connected to the cloud in an easy, secure, customizable, and GDPR compliant way. Because GDPR is one of the main topics that we hear nowadays and questions around that. And it's not that complicated. First of all, this Schrems II ruling is around. And what that means is that the European Court of Justice defined that the security niveau in Europe and in other third-party countries, especially US, is not the same, and that companies who are using US services have to take additional measures, so-called technical organizational measures, TOMs. But they haven't said what that means. What are appropriate TOMs? And this definition has been changed last year, mid of last year, by the European Data Protection Board. And they put that out in so-called use cases, what is really great for us as technicians, because we do not need a lawyer to understand what that means. And there is this use case 84, and they are saying clearly a data exporter. So that means you and your customers using a hosted a service provider in a third country. So that means, for example, Microsoft or Amazon or someone else in the States to store personal data. They have to use a strong encryption before transmission. This word before is important. I will cover that in a second. Secondly, they are referring to the state of art solution. That means you have to use a solution. There's an ENISA document where they are referring to, and that has two interesting paragraphs. One is about data exchange, meaning encryption and pseudonymization of data independent of the file exchange service has to be used. Of course, if you are not allowed to use the security measures of a cloud service, you have to use another one. And a second is a state-of-the-art solution must therefore allow appropriate, fully internally, that means by you, controlled data encryptions. That means not only the key management itself needs to be under your control, also the encryption. And for a technical person, that's absolutely clear. And that is also now reflected in the states where the data privacy officers on state level and also on European level have the same view. And that means if, the customer, if you do have the data in clear, and even if you have the key management, if the encryption is happening in the cloud, that means that the cloud provider and also hackers and also these three-letter agencies like NSA and others do have access to the data. And if you now recall the Schrems II decision, that means that this is not appropriate, that is not allowed, because this can happen without any judge. This you do not have the same rights as Europeans in the US as you should have, and that's quite sure, because encryption means you have clear text data, you have an algorithm, and you have then encrypted data. And that means the cloud provider needs to have access to this encryption. And what is interesting is that you can shift this dotted line, because if you do encryption before the cloud, you can ensure that all these parties that I mentioned before do not have any access to the data. And to quote Edward Snowden, no one can prevent that data gets stolen, but a proper encryption can prevent that stolen data can be used. It's not exactly Edward Snowden, but nevertheless, it goes in the same direction, because he is also the one who's saying only encryption is helping. And that's what we see day by day. And that's what we also heard in the presentations before. So the Eperi Gateway is a software solution that can run in the cloud, that can be hosted also, but also can run on-prem. And the magic is that it encrypts the critical data prior sending it into the cloud. And that looks here an example from Microsoft 365, because the gateway is also able to encrypt, for example, mails, calendar entries, also Teams chat messages, all the files that are transferred there, and additionally also data that is stored in OneDrive and SharePoint. You see it on the left side, the user can work like before. You also have search and sort and all those functions that are important. But on the same time, on the right side, you do see that Microsoft 365, Microsoft never ever has access to the data in clear. It's still a valid email in this case as an example, but the critical data is encrypted, and the content, attachments, all of that. And the nice thing about the Eperi gateway is also that that works for other solutions. So here's an example on Salesforce, encryption and tokenization on field level, and much more applications that are supported, where you can see it's not only, it's a multi-cloud environment that we live nowadays at Eperi is exactly supporting that. And with customers like Deutsche Telekom with around about 170,000 users using that solution, with a Deutsche Bank that is using this solution on a worldwide scale, and a lot of other customers, we are really in a scale-up and not a startup, but nevertheless, it's an important topic, solving the cloud security problem. And that's why I would be happy to see the discussion later on. In case of questions, I'm here and looking forward. Thank you.